Hi there, welcome to Hashtag with Nabuguzi Kiwanuka. This is the place where we unravel social constructs, discuss self-development in line with mental health, and everything in between that directly or indirectly affects us in the millennial world around us. I am your host, Nabuguzi Kiwanuka, a lawyer, founder / team lead of Equate Foundation, a lover of conversations, and a professional unraveler of social constructs. If you're hearing my voice for the first time, welcome to this podcast. And if you are a returning subscriber, welcome to yet another episode of insightful, unraveling, and thought-provoking conversations. This episode is like no other. We have amazing, exceptional contributors whose voices you'll hear as we go on. And the episode revolves around two majorly recognized events in February, and that is love and Black history. What Black history means to you and what it means to love yourself as a Black person are conversations society trivializes. And by society this time around, I mean the African society, because the descendants of slavery in the diaspora are making almost every day count to remind the younger generation of their identity, their roots, their Africanness. Quite the contrary on the African continent. Near church, far from God. So, Black History Month. How did it come about? Well, thanks to Google, thanks to Wikipedia. It all started in 1926 when historian Carter G. Woodson and the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History announced the second week of February to be Negro History Week. Why the second week, you may ask? It coincided with the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln on 12th and Frederick Douglass's on the 20th. The sole purpose of creating this commemoration was to encourage the teaching of history of Black Americans. At the launch of Negro History Week, Woodson contended that the teaching of Black history was essential to ensure the physical and intellectual survival of the race within the broader society. He stated, quote unquote, "If a race has no history, it has no worthwhile tradition, it becomes a negligible factor in the thought of the world, and it stands in danger of being exterminated." The spirit with which Woodson deemed it necessary for us to remember and celebrate important people and events in the African diaspora is the same we should carry on in commemorating our forebears. The resilience and fortitude with which the major players in the African diaspora deconstructed the slavery business is the reason the so-called Western superpowers no longer fetch free labor from Africa, the same reason the Kenyan descendant could become the president of a country that despises Africans. I know what you're thinking by now. This is largely American, so as an African or Ugandan, what does an American event have to do with me? A valid question. Well, to answer you, it is because of the relentlessness of the Pan-Africanists in the diaspora that Africa was given some sort of relief from the colonizers' grip. Marcus Garvey and E.W. Du Bois, amongst others, do not show up in our African nationalism classes by mistake. They don't. When you mention Pan-Africanism, the link between the indigenous and those in the diaspora cannot be omitted. The commemoration of their works, our tradition, and everything African is very important to a generation that only got to know about their Africanness through classes that introduced Africa as a Vasco da Gama discovery. our roots and identity as Africans is close to oblivion if we are only to rely on the crumbs offered in the confines of formal education tailored by our colonial masters. I mean, look at our education. We know so very well about European evolution, the conquests and their revolutions, and yet what sticks for us on the part of African evolution in Buganda, that is Chintu and Nambi, whom we only studied about until the age of 7 in primary 2. Whatever happened after Walumbe's escape veered into abandonment. Wonder why we despise our Africanness? We are between unawareness and extinction, or perhaps both. Our historical studies are limited to Dagama's discovery of the continent, the scramble and partition of Africa amongst Western powers, our identity branded primitive, our religions demonized, slavery, white saviorism, and finally the pseudo-decolonization. See, when we speak of decolonization of the African countries, many a time the effects of colonialism are abated as a mere crutch that we should not keep pulling up whenever we talk about the issues of Africa. But the truth is, when colonialism was deconstructed, our ancestors picked up its debris and fragments to forge a foundation on which Africa stands now. We have never moved on from colonialism, and neither have we cared to reinstate our identity or culture. Perhaps we were too indoctrinated to remember what it was like prior to the white man's adulteration of our identity, religion, and culture norms. The fragments of colonialism are embodied by the way Africans perceive Africans, how the colonizers' preference of the light-skinned Africans permeated our definition of beauty. Do we get to tackle why we have to bleach our skin so that we are preferred in society? I mean, the Ganda have a proverb, a saying when loosely translated would mean that an ugly person with a fairer complexion is preferred to anyone with a darker complexion. We speak of racism and get clapped back for having the same proclivities through colorism, but let it bring you no surprise that the master's indoctrination turned us into an extension of his work. Our spirituality was broken to pieces. One wonders if all our ancestors prior to Christianity and Islam are all burning in hell. An unfathomable dislike of each other, based on which master's religion we subscribe to, is so engraved in our spirit that we are unaware of who we were before their invasion. It is worse for one who subscribes to none of the two. Introducing yourself as an African without a mention of which master's religion you identify with is equated to being a worshipper of the devil. It is an abomination. Imploring the help of our ancestors is sacrilegious, and yet quoting Abraham, Elijah, Moses, amongst others, is holy. Can you beat it? Well, I got in touch with some friends. But I get very passionate about Africanness. I get very passionate about all these things happening on the continent and our history. But let me calm down. Let me take a breather. I got in touch with friends, the exceptional creatives that I talked about earlier. I got in touch with them. Some in the creative spaces, some not. They had something to share about what Black History Month means to them, and also shared what it means to love themselves as a Black person. Engage with them.
I am Caroline Afroetry MA, a poet and spoken word artist. Black History Month means honoring the monumental achievements of living pioneers and those departed. That includes the activists in the civil rights movement and activists today, the abolitionists, those in the liberation fight, those contributing to Black history in literature and art, and also sports personalities within Black history. It cuts across advocates and educators to innovators and discoverers. Black history provides us the opportunity to celebrate our rich culture, heritage, and achievements. It also helps us to examine the great contribution of Black people to the world, from Martin Luther King to Rosa Parks to James Baldwin to Malcolm X to Maya Angelou to Nina Simone. We study ourselves within this context of history, our natural history and also our heritage. Carter G. Woodson, the founder and also the father of Black History Month, said, "Those who have no record of what their forebears have accomplished lose the inspiration which comes from the teaching of biography and history, which is very, very important to us today. We need to know our history to be able to understand the future." And as a Black woman, it means so much to be Black in this time, in this age. To be able to appreciate what our ancestors had to go through. For us to be at this point, the fight that they had to deal with, to rise above the racial stereotypes and all the oppression, for us to be at this point. It means so much more for me to appreciate this skin, knowing it represents not just my race or what it means to be Black, but also my culture and heritage is embedded within this blood, this identity that I wear, that I embrace as a Black woman. So it's pride for me. I'm proud of being a Black woman in this time, and to be able to celebrate and relate with the personalities and the history that comes from Black History Month is everything. It's everything. Black is beautiful and I'm proud of being Black. And for me, Black History Month is not just a remembrance, but also a tribute to all our ancestors and those living, and also the activists today who are doing everything for us to be able to excel in this age and in this world. Black is beautiful, and I'm a proud Black woman.
Hi, my name is Khanani Daniella, and I'm excited to give my perspective on Black History Month. And Black History Month to me this year has made more sense than it has in the past years, and I think it's because just getting through 2020 and the start of this year and all the police brutality that has been going on in different African countries. Nigeria, we had the SARS. In Uganda, we've been having a lot of army brutality, and also just the death of Lloyd has just made me appreciate that as Africans we have an identity and we have a culture that has been stepped on for so long because we have religiously chosen to follow a culture that does not belong to us. So just getting your identity, and that's what Black History Month means to me. And I know in Uganda and in Africa we don't really celebrate that because we take it for granted. That we are Black and that we have a history and that history has to be protected, and that just hurts a lot because we have religiously followed a culture that doesn't belong to us. And what it means to love myself as a Black person, reading Why the Caged Bird Sings. I know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou, and just how she starts her first chapter comparing herself to the white girls who were on the stage with her and how they got the applause, and the little Black girl with woolly hair didn't get even a form of appreciation for the poem she recited. having that analogy just brought to light the fact that as a black person, you just really struggle within your skin to fit into something that is more acceptable. And I feel like I have really learned to appreciate who I am as a black person, and just appreciate my history, and appreciate my language, and appreciate my culture. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine about speaking vernacular, yeah? And there's a poetry collection that has been released by Kitara Nation about don't speak vernacular. Teachers at school for so long silence our traditional languages, and I feel like that's not a good thing, because how will we know who we are if we can't even speak in our language? Yeah. So I think this year I've really learned to appreciate my Africanicity and my blackness and my origin. Yeah.
Hey, my name is Wabwire Joseph Ian, and I think for me, Black History Month means visibility, it means inclusiveness, it means tolerance, and it means celebration for a demographic that has long been segregated. I think it's only fair that we create that time where we come together to assess how far we've come and where we're going, and what we have contributed to the future, especially now that we're in the wake of the Black Lives Matter protests that happened recently, and the conversation that came out of that, where, for instance, black businesses needed to be started mostly, and of course we shouldn't ignore the fact that when we're discussing Black History Month, then we have to point our lights to highlight that this is a problem. Rather, the Black History Month comes against the backdrop of a problem that is happening, which is racism. So, for a very antiquated, less informative perception about blacks, I think this is a time for us to even remove that and just say, as human beings, we deserve to be respected. And then, of course, this is a time for us as humans, or black humans, to find sort of like solidarity with each other, to believe in ourselves, and also continuously keep propagating the concept that of Ubuntu, that together as human beings we are valuable, we matter a lot, and whatever we contribute to the progress of this earth, we have put our footprints, Yes, so as a black person, I think Black History Month is celebration. It is documenting progress, and it's also sort of like saying the journey has just started. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Anna Grace, and to me, Black History Month means appreciation of the racial and cultural landscape of the USA from the perspective of black people, and within the wider context of all black people, extending as far as Africa into Uganda, where I live, and to me as an individual. It also reminds me that black people in the USA and elsewhere in the world are in essence and in truth African. And to love myself as a black person is to understand that everything I'll ever be, I already am. And that my role, therefore, is to illuminate all the sections of my mind with quality information that will help me to unveil and to manifest this version of myself to the world. And it also means that as an individual, I understand that I'm in the perfect body with a perfect skin, perfect hair, personality, culture, environment to produce the most beautiful expression of myself without apologizing for it, without downplaying it, without whitewashing it, or without trying to make it acceptable to other people. For me, self-love is, this is who I am, I have where I am going, I have a past, and all that is contributing to the expression of the best version of myself.
We could go on and on about the relevance of our history, but allow me to sign out with a quote from the first Black US President Barack Obama. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. If you found purpose in this episode, I'm sure you did. Make sure you're subscribed in your podcast platform of choice so that you don't miss out on any other episodes. And as the episodes come about, feel free to share your insights about what connected with you from the published conversations, especially this one. And don't forget to connect with us on social media. We are # with Nabuguzi Kiwanuka on Facebook and Instagram. And on Twitter, we are at HTNK Podcast. HTNK is all caps lock and podcast is in small case. I remain yours truly, Nabuguzi Kiwanuka, and like Burna Boy's mother said, remember you were Africans before you became anything else. Catch you next month.